He lost more money than any human in history, $70 billion gone in a blink. But just months later, he walked into a palace in the desert and walked out with $45 billion, secured in one meeting. No pitch deck, no spreadsheets. Just pure conviction. This isn't your typical billionaire. He doesn't invest with logic, he invests with instinct. He looks for a sparkle in the eyes, not numbers on a slide. Before Alibaba earned a single dollar, he saw it. Before Apple announced the iPhone, he made the deal to sell it in Japan. And then, he raised the largest tech fund the world had ever seen. $100 billion to reshape the future of humanity, backing names like Uber, WeWork, TikTok, Nvidia, DoorDash, and hundreds more. Some call him a genius, others a gambler playing roulette with the global economy. But whatever you believe, Masayoshi Son is not just building companies. He's placing bets on how the world will work 100 years from now. And if he's right, he won't just change business, he'll change history. In post-war Japan, success meant silence, conformity meant survival, and outsiders were rarely forgiven. Masayoshi Son was born in Tosu, Saga Prefecture, Japan, on August 11, 1957, in a country that didn't want him. He was the son of undocumented Korean immigrants, smuggled into Japan on a fishing boat, with no food, no Japanese, and no welcome. In school, his classmates didn't just mock him, they threw rocks at him. To the world, he was just that Korean kid. But inside himself, he was already someone else. At the age of 12, he stood in front of a mirror and made a promise to himself. One day, I'll become Japan's most successful businessman. He became obsessed with Den Fujita, the man who brought McDonald's to Japan. Masayoshi began calling Fujita's office daily, begging for a meeting. The answer was always the same: he's busy. Try later. So Son did something no other teenager would dare. He bought a plane ticket, flew to Tokyo, walked into Fujita's office, and asked for just 15 minutes of his time. And Fujita, impressed by the kid's guts, gave him 2 pieces of life-changing advice. Get into computers and go to America.
So I spoke with the assistant, different assistants so many times, and they don't give me the right answer. So I said, okay, this is a waste of my telephone bill. So I flew into Tokyo. And I said, I came because the phone call becoming more expensive than air ticket.
At 16, Masayoshi left Japan behind. He landed in California with broken English, a borrowed jacket, and a dream bigger than anyone could imagine. High school bored him. He convinced the principal to let him take the graduation test early, and just 3 weeks later, he graduated. Before turning 17, he enrolled at the University of California, Berkeley, to study economics and computer science. But Son wasn't satisfied with lectures. He asked his friends a question they thought was insane. Do you know any job where I can make $10,000 a month, working just 5 minutes a day? They laughed. But he was serious.
Okay, so he gave you that advice. So you're number 1 in your class, and then you go to University of California at Berkeley.
Yes.
But when you were there, I understand you were not being a student so much, you were doing business on the side.
Well, I was a good student. But I said, 5 minutes I would allow other than study. I have to make money. I want to earn $10,000 per month, and I will allow myself, 5 minutes a day.
Every day, he set a 5-minute timer and tried to invent something new. He studied 3 methods to innovate: solve a problem, flip the perspective, combine existing ideas. Eventually, he invented something brilliant.
So I set alarm clock 5 o'clock, 5 minutes. And tick. In 5 minutes, I said, come, invention, come, come, right? So I did that.
And it worked.
It worked.
A pocket-sized electronic translator that could convert written language between Japanese and English. Then he hustled, pitching his invention to tech companies all across the state. Finally, Sharp Corporation said yes. The deal? $1.7 million. At just 19 years old, Masayoshi Son became a millionaire. But he didn't stop there. On the side, Son began importing arcade machines from Japan to the United States, including Space Invaders. He set them up in bars, diners, and restaurants across California. Within 6 months, he made over $1.5 million in profit. By the time he turned 20, Masayoshi Son was running multiple businesses on 2 continents, sleeping just a few hours a night and working 7 days a week. Not for money, but for momentum. He had promised his mother he would return to Japan after graduation, and he did, but not just as a dutiful son. He returned with a mission: build something so big, Japan will never ignore me again.
Right after I graduated, I went back to Japan because I promised to my mother that as soon as I finish my college, I will be back to Japan. So I kept my word.
After keeping his promise to his mother, Masayoshi Son returned to Japan in the early 1980s, but not to rest. He came back with money in his pocket, fire in his eyes, and a plan to conquer an entire industry. To begin, he wrote down 40 different business ideas, carefully evaluating each one on criteria like market size, growth potential, and long-term impact. The winning idea was bold yet simple: software distribution. At the time, Japan's tech scene was still emerging, and very few companies were focused on distributing software seriously. In 1981, at just 24 years old, Son launched a small company with 2 employees. He called it SoftBank, soft for software, and bank for leverage. On day 1, he climbed onto a crate in their modest office and declared, "We will build $1 billion company." His 2 employees quit within a week, thinking he had lost his mind. But Masayoshi Son was unfazed. He began importing software from the United States, signing deals with companies that no Japanese distributor dared approach. He realized Japan lacked not just supply, but demand. So he created that too. He launched SoftBank Magazine, a publication designed to educate the Japanese public about computers and software. As SoftBank began to grow, so did Son's ambition. But fate had another test waiting. By the early 1990s, SoftBank had exploded in size. The company employed over 800 people, earned over $1 billion in annual revenue, and was now publicly traded. But Son wasn't interested in just being a successful distributor. He had his eyes set on something far bigger. He wanted SoftBank to become the most powerful tech investment firm in the world. Son began making aggressive and visionary acquisitions, many of which would become legendary. He invested in Yahoo Japan long before Google existed. He backed E-Trade, helping democratize online investing. He purchased Boston Dynamics, known for creating the most advanced robots in the world. And it turned SoftBank into a mythical force in venture capital. To scale this model, Son formally launched SoftBank Capital, a dedicated VC arm that focused on finding unicorns before anyone else could. But as his legend grew, so did the criticism. Whispers began to spread in boardrooms and financial circles. He's reckless. He's gambling with billions. It's all going to collapse eventually. What they didn't realize was that for Masayoshi Son, this was just the warm-up. This is just the start. Stay with us and see what happens next as Masayoshi Son makes the boldest $20 million bet of his life and changes the tech world forever. By the late 1990s, Masayoshi Son had become a force of nature in the tech investment world. He wasn't just placing bets, he was shaping markets, launching revolutions, and backing companies before anyone else even saw them coming. But his next move? That would be the one that defined him forever. In the year 2000, while scouting opportunities in China, Son met a young, unknown entrepreneur named Jack Ma. His company, Alibaba, had barely any revenue, no business plan, and no reputation outside of Hangzhou. Most investors walked away, but Masayoshi Son saw something different. Not numbers, not projections, but what he called a sparkle in his eyes. He handed over $20 million to Alibaba. Within years, that $20 million investment ballooned into over $90 billion, making it one of the largest single payoffs in startup history. For 3 days, during the peak of the internet boom, Masayoshi Son became the richest man in the world, briefly overtaking Bill Gates. He didn't just beat Silicon Valley, he outgambled it. But glory never comes without a cost. Soon after, the dot-com bubble burst. Tech stocks plummeted, startups collapsed. And Masayoshi Son, he lost $70 billion, the biggest personal financial loss ever recorded in human history. Just like that, the empire he had built began to crack.
The market went down in the tech crash, and it is said that you personally lost $70 billion of net worth, the greatest loss that any human being has ever suffered financially. So how did you feel losing $70 billion of net worth?
1 year before that, actually, my net worth, personal net worth, was increasing $10 billion per week. For 3 days, I became richer than Bill Gates.
Wow. Did that upset him, or?
No, before I told to anybody else, our stock started crashing.
Okay.
But instead of retreating, Son doubled down. While others pulled out, he pushed forward. He wasn't ready to stop, not when the next revolution was already on the horizon. He looked not to America, but to Japan's struggling telecom sector. In a bold and risky move, he acquired Vodafone Japan for $20 billion, rebranding it as SoftBank Mobile. Most people thought it was a terrible idea. SoftBank had no real telecom experience, and the market was dominated by giants like NTT Docomo. But Son had a secret. He knew something no one else did. Apple was about to release the iPhone. Before Steve Jobs even officially announced it, Son called him and said, "I want exclusive rights to sell the iPhone in Japan." Jobs laughed at first. SoftBank didn't even own a network at the time, but Son replied, "Then I'll buy one." And that's exactly what he did. Through this $20 billion telecom gamble, Son became Apple's exclusive carrier in Japan. Just as the smartphone era exploded, the strategy paid off. SoftBank Mobile flourished, attracting millions of new users and solidifying SoftBank's transformation from a software distributor to a tech-driven telecom empire.
We do have some breaking news right now on SoftBank. The anticipated sale of a large chunk of its T-Mobile stake now official, according to a filing. SoftBank will sell approximately 200 million shares of T-Mobile, which would be valued at just over $20 billion as of today's closing price. Again, anticipated, but there you can see SoftBank or T-Mobile under a little bit of pressure here in extended hours, down 1.4%.
Masayoshi Son had done the unthinkable. He fell from the top, but rose even higher. He proved he wasn't just a lucky investor, he was a gambler who knew how to get back in the game. And yet, this was only the setup. This is just the start. Stay with us and watch what happens next, as Masayoshi Son attempts to raise the largest tech fund in human history and reshape the future of humanity itself. After surviving the worst financial loss in human history and turning SoftBank Mobile into a telecom success, Masayoshi Son wasn't thinking about retirement. He wasn't even thinking about the next decade. He was thinking about the next 300 years. But there was a problem. After missing out on investing in companies like Amazon, not because he lacked vision, but because he lacked capital, Masayoshi realized something. He needed a war chest, massive, fast, unstoppable. And so in 2016, he dreamed up something the world had never seen before, a single venture capital fund of $100 billion. The name, the Vision Fund. While most VC firms raise $1.5 billion over several years, Son planned to raise 20 times that amount in a matter of months. The future is AI. I will find the winners before anyone else. The first believer was Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund, PIF, headed by Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Son flew to Riyadh, presented his idea, and walked out with a $45 billion commitment after just 45 minutes.
In 1 hour, you convinced him to invest $45 billion.
No, it's not true.
Okay?
45 minutes, $45 billion.
Okay.
$1 billion per minute.
That's $1 billion per minute. Soon after, more giants joined in: Apple, Foxconn, and Qualcomm. SoftBank also committed billions of its own. With that, the $2.8 billion Vision Fund was born, the largest tech investment fund in human history. And then Son went shopping. He invested in Uber, WeWork, DoorDash, Coupang, ByteDance, and many more. Sometimes he would invest billions of dollars after a 30-minute meeting without even reviewing the business plan. If a founder asked for $100 million, he'd reply, "Why not $500 million?" The most infamous, WeWork. After SoftBank invested over $2 billion, its valuation soared to $47 billion. But beneath the surface were questionable financials, erratic leadership, and wild spending. The WeWork collapse wasn't just a reputational hit, it triggered real internal consequences. In 2020, SoftBank laid off 10% of its Vision Fund staff, marking the first visible crack in the empire's armor. For the first time, Masayoshi Son's bold vision was being forced to scale back. Others accused Son of using capital as a weapon, overwhelming competition, not through innovation, but by simply outspending them. And yet, even as Sequoia and Andreessen Horowitz watched carefully, none could match the sheer scale of what SoftBank had built. Son didn't care about the headlines. His eyes were locked on something else. He believed the first 3 revolutions were computers, then the internet, then mobile. Now, he said, the 4th wave was coming: artificial intelligence. The Vision Fund wasn't just about apps, it was about artificial intelligence, robotics, genomics, and automation. While Vision Fund 1 made history with early bets like Alibaba and Uber, its younger sibling, Vision Fund 2, nearly drowned. By the end of fiscal year 2023, it had lost $32 billion, a staggering blow. And another, SoftBank itself, posted a $23.1 billion net loss. The numbers were brutal, but the message was louder. SoftBank's vision had a blind spot: governance failures, overconfidence, risk without a parachute. The empire that bet on the future was now being haunted by its past. A 50-year life roadmap: start a company in his 20s, build wealth in his 30s, deploy capital in his 40s, wrap it up in his 50s, and hand it over in his 60s. Now in his 60s, he wasn't slowing down, he was preparing to leave a legacy. SoftBank began investing in NEOM, Saudi Arabia's proposed futuristic megacity, where flying cars, robot servants, and AI-run infrastructure would become the norm. It was about shaping how humanity would live and think for the next 300 years. And then came 2025. Masayoshi Son walked into Trump Tower and walked out with headlines. He pledged to invest $100 billion into the US economy and create 100,000 jobs. This wasn't just business. It was a strategy, a handshake that aligned SoftBank's tech ambitions with America's political moment. A reminder that Son wasn't just building startup, he was shaping the balance of global power.
SoftBank will be investing $100 billion in America, creating 100,000 American jobs at a minimum.
If you had $100 billion, would you hand it to a man who doesn't read pitch decks? Man who makes billion-dollar decisions in minutes, not with data, but with instinct. Not with spreadsheets, but with a feeling. A man who once lost more than anyone in human history and still came back to raise more than anyone ever had. Masayoshi Son has built and broken companies faster than most can dream them. And now, with artificial intelligence, robotics, and automation, his next bet isn't just on the future of business, it's on all of us.